across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening to you. This is Petrie with you for the next 3 hours. And of course, coming up at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. And there's a story here, I took it from the Telegraph, I think. Britain braces for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers. Migration experts say people fleeing the conflict and an estimate of 2.5 million extra people displaced Afghans in Iran as well could fuel a migration crisis. They're saying with a population of approximately 90 million, even partial destabilisation could generate refugee movements of an unprecedented magnitude. A displacement of just 10% of Iran's population would rival the largest refugee flows of recent decades. That's 9 million people fleeing the war in Iran. So I have a lot of questions for you about that. First of all, how should we handle that? Because it'll be Europe, won't it? I think initially it'll be Turkey, because a lot of them will want to stay, in the region, if you like, so that they can return home. But for those that don't, they will go to Europe. They will come to Europe, and they will then try to cross. Some of them will try to come into the UK. Iran was the third highest nation for asylum claims last year, and a very high percentage of those claims are accepted. Of course, this new influx, should they come, and it is predicted that they will be subject to Shabana Mahmood's introduction of a temporary refugee status, which means that after 30 months, if Iran is then stable and safe, they will be required to go home. But I just wonder how you feel about this. Migration experts said that Iranians fleeing the conflict could leave the country and fuel the migration crisis. The EU's asylum agency has also warned that the conflict could introduce migration influx of unprecedented magnitude that could swamp EU's borders. This was drawn up, actually, this annual report published on Tuesday, but drawn up before the US-Israeli strikes. But they did say there's a significant potential crisis that could reverse progress in reducing migration numbers over the past year. So lots of questions to ask you about that, not least, actually, should Israel and America be held responsible for that movement of refugees? Should they have to give us some money if these people do try to seek asylum here in this country? Should the money come from Israel and the US? Because obviously those Muslims are not going to want to go to Israel, and there's an ocean between the US and any chance of those people getting there. They'd have to fly, and they'd be blocked at immigration. So, I suppose they could fly to Mexico and try and go in that way, but it's much easier, isn't it, for them to attempt to come to Europe? So, lots of things to talk to you about at midnight. I look forward to talking to you about it then, but give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So that is going to be talk back at midnight. Also coming up this programme, we've got John Boothman joining us, the wonderful John Boothman from Scotland. He's going to be here to go through the papers. We're going to be heading to Mars. I love these stories, you know I do, but there's a pyramid-like structure which was first seen on Mars in 2001, has renewed debate on whether human-like creatures inhabited the planet billions of years ago. Fascinating. This is really, really fascinating. That's coming up at about 11:15. Then we're going to be talking to Kevin Schofield about what's been going on in British politics with PMQs, etc. And all of that is to come. I just want to bring you some updated news here. 2 men charged in relation to spying on the Jewish community for Iran. Like I said, they have been charged in relation to that. Neamtola Shavanshani, a dual Iranian and British national aged 40, and Ari Reza Farasati, an Iranian national aged 22, have both been charged with engaging in conduct likely to assist a foreign intelligence service between July the 9th and August the 15th last year. The Crown Prosecution Service said Iran was the country the charges related to. So there's a bit of an update there on those suspects. If you remember them being arrested, which I do, they have now been charged. Right, moving on to our first story this evening. I want to talk about whether you can bomb your way out of ideology, if that is possible to do. We keep hearing about the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs, and the country. But I really wanted to have a look and see what this bombing is doing to the psychology of the Iranians. Are they gathering under the flag? If Donald Trump and Israel just keep killing and killing and killing the leaders of the regime, will it collapse, or will other people come through? And does this strengthen a regime who believes in martyrdom? And I was listening today to some Iranian people being interviewed saying we're prepared to die for our country, literally die for our country. Every drop of Iranian blood will be spilt before we give in to America or Israel. So huge crowds of Iranians have today attended the funeral processions for senior security officials Ali Larijani and Gomezra Soleimani in Tehran, killed in Israeli strikes. Overnight, another intelligence minister, Ismail Khatib, was confirmed dead by Iran's president. Well, the Iranian army chief, Amir Hatami, has threatened decisive and regrettable action in response to Larijani's killing, while Iran's new supreme leader vows his killers will pay. So how do you kill an ideology, and can you? Well, Dr. Al-Mahmoodian joins me now, research fellow at the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute. Good evening to you. We are fascinated, of course, because I think that perhaps a lot of people think that we all think the same. But there is a very stark difference, isn't there, in the Iranian regime in how they believe and what they think.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and you're right on the point. This is a very unique regime. This is not an average authoritarian regime. This is a regime that combines authoritarianism with the clergy. Basically, it is a theocracy. So we are dealing with a political entity that believe these wars or the world that we are living on is just a passage to a greater and permanent one, the aftermath. And some of them actually believe in that. You know, there are a number of them who actually believe in that if even they lose their life in this war, it's not going to be the worst case. It brings them permanent peace and prosperity, meaning living in the heaven. Some of them don't. But the question is that how can one reason, as you mentioned earlier on, such a regime through military actions? I think in the absence of any ground operation, which at this point we don't see United States getting ready for a massive invasion of Iran's mainland, maybe some preparation for the islands, but not the mainland. The other option for the United States would be basically trying to kill its way to find a pragmatic people in charge. And that it seems to be what the United States is interested in. They killed the supreme leader. And now the Israeli mentioned that they are keen to find a new supreme leader, the son of the previous one, Mojtaba Khomeini. They want to remove him. So the idea is that by killing hardliners, at some point the United States and the Israelis would get to the point that the lesser radicals or more pragmatic individuals in Iran would be in charge. However, what happened yesterday in Iran and the killing of Ali Larijani, which among or within the Islamic Republic's structure, was one of the pragmatic ones. It kind of raised the points that if we are also going to remove pragmatic one like the Larijani, then who you are interested in, if you want somebody from the establishment comes up and rise up and takes over.
The thing though that occurs to me is that the more you bomb, the more the pragmatic potential leaders are likely to become hardline. Surely. I mean, for example, the bombing of that school, the killing of those children, people who may have been looking at America as a savior for Iran, I would imagine have changed their mind on that. So it just seems to me that to continue bombing creates more hatred towards the country that's bombing you.
Look, this is a very fair point, and I think specifically speaking, the tragedy of the Minab school that you mentioned, that about 170 to 180 young girls being killed in the bombardment, which seems to be the United States. Many American officials and former officials, at least former officials, admitted that. The New York Times also has a very good report on that. They are the tragedies, and they definitely do what you just mentioned. They harden societies. But this is a kind of a debate over here that on one hand, yes, the war and the bombardment, traumatize a society and makes, as you said, the pragmatic elements within the establishment more radical. But the counter argument is that if you continue, and I think that's an argument that US and Israeli believe it, if you continue bombing the regime and political entity, at some point, they may be radicalized or hardened already, but their survival instinct would kick in. They basically would come to the conclusion that, oh, if we continue this war, we are going to lose it all. So for the sake of the greater good, which in view of the Islamic Republic's theocracy is the existence of the establishment, they would give in. And I think I can point out to what Ayatollah Khomeini, the founding father of the Islamic Republic, said. He once said, the protection of the regime's survival and existence is the highest mandate. It is much more even important than daily prayer. And if for the sake of regime, you need to cancel prayer, you can do it. That's a direct quote from him.
Wow.
So this is a very survivalist regime. But what kind of makes the US position now in an odd way, while the argument can be rational, their events on the field are not really in accordance. And why is that? Look, right now, Iran is running presumably by Mojtaba Khamenei. And who is Mojtaba Khamenei? Mojtaba Khamenei is a person who on February 8, 28, lost his father, his wife, his sister, sister-in-law, nephews, brother-in-law, and apparently some of his children during the August strike. So this is an individual that could be fueled by the great deal of vengeance, revenge, and could be basically on suicide mission. This is very hard. He is not a person that we can bet on reasoning him. So maybe at some point, United States has to move forward with removing him. And then the question would be, what if the person who successes him also doesn't fall that level of vengeance and the so-called desire for justice? Because as the war continues, more people dies, more people share that trauma, and more people have higher on the stick, and the war is going to get more and more personalized to sum it up.
So do you think that Donald Trump underestimated Iran? Do you think that for some reason he's underestimated the theocracy, the religion, the martyrdom, the preparation to die to have a better life, if for want of a better expression? That we in the West don't share that same martyrdom attitude. Has he underestimated, do you think, the strength of the Iranian regime?
I think there is a combination of partial underestimation and also overconfidence. I think what happened in Venezuela gave the United States that understanding of the reality. If you remove the high command, then the second tier, for the sake of their life, would get along with you. And I think that was a bad comparison, very bad analogy. Iran and Venezuela are very different cases. Regime-wise, history-wise, they are very different cases. And the other thing that I think the United States kind of I maybe underestimated or didn't expect that, to what extent the Iranians are going out of their way to just inflict pain. If you look at the previous exchange of the fires between Iran and Israel, or Iran, Israel, and US, in April and October of 2024, both countries had single shots on each other. Iranian attack Israel, Israel's response. And then we had the June war.
Yeah.
In all three, Iranians were very keen to have a contain or so-called managed escalation. They just targeted the Israelis. They didn't, and when they targeted the Americans in June in Qatar, they were kind of keen to not inflict casualty. This one, the Iranians were way out. They basically bombed every single country in the Persian Gulf, Levant corridor, except Syria, which makes, ironically, Syria right now the safest country in the region, actually. And what I think that the United States missed was that when the Iranian officials prior to the war, they warned that the next war would be a regional war. We will, quote unquote, set the region on the fire. They took it as a blank threat. They didn't really grasp to what extent this regime can be dangerous if they truly find themselves in the corner that the threat is then existential. And that was a mistake.
And when you look at the war as it proceeds, there's no doubt about it that America and Israel have the tactical advantage. They have the weapons, they have the tactical advantage for this. But the strategic advantage surely must go to Iran. They fight an asymmetrical war. It's not like for like. They've got proxies, they've got the Strait of Hormuz, they've got economic damage around the world. It appears that in terms of strategy, the Iranians are beating the Americans.
The Iranians have strategical advantage, largely is because of the geography.
Yeah.
The Strait of Hormuz goes through. But Americans can have also a strategic advantage. But so far, they haven't really inflicted that or triggered that because of, I believe, it's self-imposed restraint by the United States. The advantage that the United States has is that they are dealing with the regime and political entity, which is resource-wise is very drained. So what the wild card that the United States has, and they haven't played for reasons, is to, rather than going solely on Iranian military infrastructure, actually focuses on Iran's civilian infrastructure. If they bomb Iran's electricity power grids or power production, Iran's refineries, if the U.S. or Iran's corpse is still corpse factories, if U.S. targets these elements, which they yesterday, earlier today, they partially did it with the attack on the Asylum gas field, they would inflict a damage on Iran that, given to the limitation that Iran has in terms of resources, is going to take Iran decades to recover from that. But the United States hasn't so far played with that card, and there is a reason behind of that. Look, Iran targeted many areas right now in the region, but they haven't also targeted a good number of the places on purpose. One of those purposes is the gas and oil fields within the Persian Gulf. So not in the mainland of the countries, but the Persian Gulf itself contains a good number of the gas and oil fields. And they are, because they are sporadic through this body of the water, they are quite vulnerable. This is one of the cards that Iran has signaled that in terms of attack on its infrastructure would play. And the other one, they didn't really, they pushed on the oil depot and some of the refiners in the region, but they didn't really went heavy on that. Today they did it. Today they attacked one of the main oil refineries in Qatar.
In revenge for those killings, yeah.
In retaliation. So Iran has this card too. So United States' strategic advantage hasn't been triggered because triggering it can come also with a strategic cost, which would be an earthquake, reaction in the energy market.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the point, isn't it? I don't suppose that America and Israel are not bombing to save Iran. It would be because the damage that would do to the global economy. But there is some suspicion that with those Marines, those thousands of Marines that are heading to the region, that he could put boots on the ground if he tried to take Karg Island or the Toms. That would be surely an escalation that Iran wouldn't, even if they didn't put boots on the mainland, if they strangled Karg Island, that would be devastating for Iran, and they don't actually have to blow up the refineries, do they?
No, that would be a great blow to Iranian, because the Karg Island is when Iran distributes most of its oil.
90%,
so
yeah.
Yes, and the island being the infrastructure being built by the British back in the 1940s and 30s. Since then, being a main hub of the distribution of the Iranian oil. If they take that island, or specifically the part that they call it the T port, is a port in shape of the T or letter T, Iran would have a fatal problem in distributing oil and gas. And I think what the United States is trying to, reports suggest that U.S. is putting two groups of the Marines on alert. One of them is the expeditionary groups, and the other is the so-called ready group. These two units, which seems to have a size of about 2,500 to 5,000, depending on the report, are very well trained to push toward the enemy's defense line with a high space. So you use them in a special operation in a smaller scale for quick victory. What I think the U.S. can aim for it is that the United States can aim for taking these islands, not only the Khark, but also the Greater and Lesser Tomb and Abu Musa, and then use them as a leverage with the Iranians.
Yeah.
In a way that signals them that now I have part of your territory. It's not just bombardment. You want it back, you want the bombardment to stop, you need to do this, do that, and do this. But we have also historical evidences with the Islamic Republic during Iran-Iraq war. They don't really respond well with the territorial concessions demands. However, this Islamic Republic also is not as powerful or popular as the one during the Iran-Iraq war. That's also a factor that plays in the equation.
And just briefly, if I can, there's been some talk about the mullahs falling and the IRGC taking over the country. Could you see that as a possibility?
It seems we are moving toward that direction. It seems right now, with the removal of the supreme leader and people like the Ali Larijani and Moshtaba being absent, it is the IRGC, it is the combination of General Jafari, General Wahid, and former General Ghalibaf who are running the country. So Iran is on that path. I mean, I believe so at least.
Yeah, I do too. Fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Dr. Ahmadoudian. Terrible with names, I'm so sorry. But thank you very much indeed for joining me. That was absolutely brilliant. Right, quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. And there's a report that's come out saying that Britain is bracing for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers because, of course, we know that America and Israel are bombing Iran. So what happens in a war is that people flee for their safety and run to countries that provide asylum. Of course, those Muslims won't run to Israel. Why would they? And they wouldn't be allowed in anyway. And, they're not going to go to America. even though they're the ones that are causing this disruption, they're more likely to head to Turkey in the short term and then across to Europe in the long term. So Europeans are bracing themselves for a huge, potentially 9 million people being displaced from Iran, heading this way. So the question, I have questions for you about that at midnight in terms of, what should we do? How do we handle this? What does Europe do? Should there be quota systems, even though we're not part of the EU? How do we manage this? How do we manage this incredible influx? And don't forget as well that Afghanistan and Pakistan are at war as well. So we could see a bigger influx of Afghani refugees as well. So what do we do about this? How do we manage this? And should America and Israel be paying money to the countries that take in these refugees? After all, it wasn't us that started this war. It wasn't us that did this. But we will end up with the refugees. So that's what I want to talk to you about at midnight. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can send me a message as well. Put the word talk and then your message to 87222. In the meantime, we're giving you the chance to win 2 hospitality tickets to the British Grand Prix on Sunday, the 5th of July, with the full Racing Green trackside experience. This is the ultimate setup for race day. You'll get exclusive grandstand seats at the Loop and Village Corners, plus track access to watch the drivers arriving in the paddock, and access to the hospitality shuttle bus, racing simulators and live music between sessions, and an all-day street food and open bar. Who could want anything more than that? Listen up now to how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 20th of March 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and in about 15 minutes' time, we're going to be heading to Mars. Not the chocolate bar, unfortunately, but no, we're going to be talking about a pyramid-like structure that was first seen on Mars in 2001, but there's renewed debate on whether human-like creatures inhabited the planet billions of years ago. If you're watching, we have got images, so you can see it for yourself. and see what you think of it. We're going to be talking to Brian Dobbs, documentary filmmaker and Mars disclosure journalist. That'll be fascinating. It'll be really, really interesting. But for now, we're turning our attention to, well, I don't know what you'd call them in this country, but they're certainly alien to me, and that is the political classes, with Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Good evening to you, Mr. Schofield. How are you?
I'm fine, Petrie. How are you?
Good. I'm very well indeed, thank you. Let's have a look at PMQs. Do you think it's still timely for Kemi Badenoch to be, banging on a bit about the Mandelson files? It feels like we've kind of moved beyond that a bit in this country.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. It was a bit left field. I don't think anyone was really expecting her to go on Mandelson. I think the logic behind it was that the government published the first tranche of Mandelson documents after PMQ's
last. I remember.
So this was the first time that she'd had an opportunity to directly quiz Keir Starmer about it. I think there's probably other things that she could have asked them about. The one thing, though, that really came out of it was that Keir Starmer quite clearly does not want to talk about it. He never answered a single question. She asked him repeatedly if he had spoken to Peter Mandelson personally before giving him the job of US ambassador, and he dodged the question, which basically means yes, he did not speak to him. And the weird thing about it is that Number 10 have already confirmed that he didn't speak to him. So I don't know what Keir Starmer thought he was achieving by just dodging the question. He tried to turn it around each time to bring it onto Iran, which he thinks is quite strong ground for him because the polling would suggest that he's on the side of public opinion when it comes to his approach to the Iran war, whereas Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage were a bit more gung-ho at the beginning. So, but it was a really strange set of exchanges, really. I mean, Keir Starmer made no attempt at all to answer any questions, tried to turn it on its head, and it was all a bit unseemly, really.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you're right. The fact that the report, the files came out after PMQs last week, but it just felt to me like she missed a beat here. That actually, the country is more concerned about fuel. They're more concerned about the cost of living. They're more, we've moved on, and it felt like she really missed the memo, really, that the country is like, okay, Mandelson's in hand. Right, we know that the Keir Starmer's not going to. He's already said sorry. Not that anybody's accepting that, but it's in hand. What about what's happening now? And she could really have landed some punches on that really quite woeful package that he came up with to help people in oil poverty. And I think she kind of missed the pulse of the nation on that.
Yeah, it was a strange one. She got bogged down in process about Peter Mandelson, as I say, whether Keir Starmer had spoken to him or not. It's not exactly the main topic of conversation down the dog and duck, is it, right now? No. You're right, it's all about the cost of living. People are worried about the war in Iran, what that's going to mean for oil prices, what it's going to mean for prices in the shops, prices at the pumps, energy bills, that type of thing. And she could really have got under Keir Starmer's skin, I think, a little bit by pushing him on that. But yeah, it was. It didn't. I don't think either of them came out of it with much credit. I don't think it wasn't a great choice of questions by her, and his way of just avoiding the questions at every opportunity.
It's embarrassing, actually, because it is embarrassing because, as you said, we're not stupid. We do know the situation, and to avoid it when it's a known thing is it just seems to be a pointless exercise. But again, I go back to what the country would like to have heard Starmer being pushed on, and that is, again, the defence budget and the embarrassment of Britain's pathetic attempt to send a lonely ship to Cyprus. I mean, there was. I don't know. I just felt it was very weak of her.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely genuine and I think proper criticism to be made of the government's preparation for the war in Iran. I mean, it was no secret that that was the way things were heading. It's baffling, really, why they didn't have the ship HMS Dragon at least ready to go.
I mean, Donald Trump had been building up ships in that for weeks.
He had, absolutely. So it's not as if it came out of the bright blue sky that the war started, but the fact that it seemed to catch the Ministry of Defence and the government on the hop. In fact, I was speaking to one senior Labour figure a couple of days ago, and they were saying that that John Healey's standing in the party has been really damaged by the country's response to the war. You know, they're asking, as the Defence Secretary, why did he not make it his job to make sure that that the Navy was ready to deploy HMS Dragon at a moment's notice, whereas it took several days to get the ship kitted out. I
don't think it's there yet, is it? I think it's in Gibraltar.
No, it takes about a week, I think, to get there. And it took a good week to 10 days to actually get it ready to set sail, and it just looked as though we were caught on the hop. And it's but yeah, that I think would have been a pretty justifiable topic to
and an easy one to beat him with, right? An easy stick to use. I mean, it just. Yeah, I was really surprised, actually, because she's been performing quite well recently, I thought, and was really getting the tone right. And I think she dropped the ball today, 100%.
No, you're right. I mean, she's got the hang of PMQs. You know, it took her a little while, but there's no doubt that she has got, and she has been much better of late. But yeah, the last today wasn't great. Last week wasn't great for her either. So she needs to maybe rethink her strategy a little bit in time for next week.
Yeah, I mean, it may be the case that she's just thinking, "Oh, this is an easy poke at him." But she's forgotten that a day is a long time in politics, and we need to move on.
And you're right, and it's as you mentioned earlier, it's just not an issue. The management issue, it is important, of course it is, but it's not uppermost in people's minds right now. Far from it. People have got a lot more pressing concerns about how they're going to pay their bills, basically, rather than whether or not the Prime Minister spoke to Peter Mandelson before making him US ambassador.
Yeah. Let's have a look at Angela Rayner now. Many people speculating that she is again placing herself for a leadership challenge. It was a scripted, devastating critique of Sakir's leadership without naming him. Saying that Labour is running out of time, and many people speculating that this is her trying to put herself in pole position for a leadership challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Talk about running out of time. I think we know who she had in mind when she uttered those words. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to a Labour MP today who basically said that while he's still supporting Keir Starmer for the moment, he thinks that a leadership challenge is inevitable after the elections on May the 7th. Everyone is assuming that they're going to be really, really horrific for the Labour Party, and that a leadership challenge of some description will have to happen almost immediately after those elections. And clearly Angela Rayner is trying to position herself to be near the top of the rankings when that race begins. There's a story breaking this evening that allies of Angela Rayner believe that this tax investigation that's hanging over her will be done and dusted and dealt with by May. I'm not sure, but that's maybe a little bit optimistic. But if that's the case, then that is the last remaining hurdle, really, to her making a challenge. So she was setting out her stall, attacking Shabana Mahmood's.
Yeah, I found that quite attacking her own Home Secretary. I mean, that is an unusual move to make, but it's signalling to the harder left, I guess, that's where she would take the party, to call it un-British and to say things like that about her immigration schemes.
Yeah, exactly. And also, don't forget that Shabana Mahmood may well be a rival of hers come the leadership election. So, I suppose it doesn't do her any harm to be criticising her already. That might be a precursor to a leadership election in the summer. Who knows? But yeah, there's no doubt she was sort of flashing her left-wing credentials, really, because we know that that will go down well with a good chunk of Labour MPs and also with the party membership if she ends up on the ballot paper. So, yeah, it's pretty naked manoeuvring for the leadership, and I'm sure it didn't go down terribly well with Keir Starmer.
But also the sort of echoing of Gordon Brown as well when she said that we're best when we're bold, which is very similar to something that he said.
He did, that's right. As one of his famous Labour Party conference speeches, I seem to remember that was when he was himself manoeuvring to take over from
Tony Blair.
And it was him setting out, you had Blair, New Labour to his fingertips, taking the party to the right, and that was a famous speech that Gordon Brown gave about we're best when we're Labour, and that is obviously the message I think that Angela Rayner's trying to get as well.
And what about Zach Polinsky today? With his he got some television time from that, and he was saying that what the Greens would do with the energy crisis and how he would pay for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting actually how he has repositioned the Greens as an unashamedly left-wing party. You don't actually hear him talk much about environmental issues, which is unusual for the leader of the Greens. But it's all about a wealth tax, hammering the rich, basically saying that there are no problems in this country that can't be solved by making the super wealthy pay a bit more tax, and if we just did that, then there'd be lots of money sloshing around and everything would be hunky-dory. Now, it's quite reminiscent to me anyway of when Jeremy Corbyn led the Labour Party, unashamedly left-wing, and I think Zach Polinsky is sort of appealing to that constituency out there that undoubtedly were very keen on what Jeremy Corbyn was selling as Labour leader. There's no other party right now. Certainly Labour aren't in that space anymore. Keir Starmer is nowhere near Jeremy Corbyn, politically, economically, you name it. So Zach Polinsky, I think, sees an opportunity there. He thinks there's millions of people out there who like that left-wing message. He's charismatic. He's a good communicator.
Well, I've never known the Greens get so much television time. Have you?
No, absolutely.
I mean, it's extraordinary. On one of the news channels there, he got his whole speech out there.
Yeah, it is remarkable.
Never seen it.
And he's not even an MP.
No.
That's the thing, it's not even as if he's in the House of Commons. So he's done very well to get the attention he does. And also, they've got electoral success that they can point to now. They've won the Denton by-election, which I think has sent a shiver up the spine of quite a lot of Labour MPs in seats where...
Which is possibly why Rayner's pulling the party back to the left.
Yeah, well that is it. But the danger there, of course, is that there's an awful lot of Labour voters who are quite tempted by reform on the right, and that's the problem that Labour have got. They're getting squeezed at the moment by the Greens on the left and reform on the right, and they're struggling to sort of set out their own course.
Yeah, fascinating times. Kevin Schofield, thank you very much indeed for joining me, the political editor there at the Huffington Post UK. Stay where you are. We're heading to Mars next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour, we have John Boothman, who's going to be joining us to go through the newspapers for tomorrow. But first, I'm really excited about this. A pyramid-like structure, first seen on Mars in 2001, has renewed debate on whether human-like creatures inhabited the planet billions of years ago. The image was originally captured by NASA's Mars Global Surveyor and found by a researcher while he was scanning the data, and suggests it may be, an artificial structure. The NASA photo is generating interest on social media 25 years later, after it was unearthed again in the documentary Blue Planet Red by filmmaker Brian Dobbs, who joins us now. This is great. Brian, I'm so thrilled to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. I mean, the film, I have not seen the film because we came to this story a bit late, but I am going to try and find it. On the history, evidence for life and catastrophes that contributed to the death of Mars. Where do we start? You better lead off. First of all, this pyramid, are you convinced that it is man-made or creature-made? It is not natural.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a wonderful invitation, so thank you. I'd like to parlay this discussion of what went viral this week into the overall, more broader discussion of what I refer to as Mars disclosure. I'm a journalist like yourself, a documentary filmmaker, and after learning what I learned about over these past few years, there seems to have been, in some manner, a suppression of the evidence that NASA has discovered over the past half century, pyramids being one of them. The overall larger story here is there's evidence not just for these structures, but for biology, for fossils, and for artifacts. So when we take a look at a structure that looks, for all intents and purposes, like a pyramid, I am sitting here trying to vet this. Number one, is the image real? Yes, it's real. I've had all these images from NASA. But number two, can I find anything like it in nature that looks anything remotely like it? And that's my challenge to the public. That's my challenge to geologists specifically. And thus far, I'm having a tough time finding anybody who can submit anything that looks like what we are looking at here, which appears to be a three-sided symmetrical pyramid with geometric regularity.
Yeah. I mean, there's no denying it. I mean, it looks exactly like a pyramid. And like you said, can that be formed in nature? Look, strange things are formed, especially in an area such as this has been found, where there's a lot of geological movement, right? But like you said, it looks like it was put together. It doesn't look like nature created it. So who did create it?
Yeah, well, that is a very good question. What I can tell you is that any one piece of evidence or rather in support of this artificiality hypothesis, that there were these structures that were artificially created by a previous ancient civilization on Mars, as crazy as that sounds, any one of them really isn't enough to move the needle. It's only when you look at the totality of evidence where it starts to paint a much different picture of Mars than the one that we've been led to believe. And I really don't want to point the finger too much at NASA. I think NASA's doing a great job at engineering, at furthering our understanding of the universe. But unfortunately, as it relates to their discoveries, they just haven't been doing a great job in the public relations department and transparency with what they've been finding. So I felt compelled enough to put together a documentary which sort of weaves a different story than most people have heard, which does include these. Look, Carl Sagan has this famous quote. He says, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And then to which I would respond with another quote by Carl Sagan. Intelligent life first reveals itself through the geometric regularity of its constructions. Now, what does he mean? He means if you're in a spaceship looking down on a terrestrial planet, how would you first know there's intelligent life there? You'd first know it by seeing straight lines and geometric patterns, city grids, and even the pyramids themselves. And what we're seeing on Mars does not fit a geological explanation. It doesn't fit what a volcano is supposed to look like. It doesn't fit what a mountain or a hill or a mesa or a butte or whatever NASA wants to call it. It looks like, and you don't need a geology or an engineering degree to see these things. I mean, you saw it yourself. So this three-sided pyramid structure is one of dozens, Petrie, dozens, that NASA has photographed over the past 50 years that they just don't want to talk about it. They're not in the disclosure business. So, which is why I am trying to come in here and cover what is a thriving Mars community. And I have a clip here of two of the people who are actually doing the research and things that they've uncovered. We even have a different example of another pyramid that I'd love for you to take a quick look at.
I mean, it is. Do we have the other pyramid for me to have a look at? 'Cause I'd
yeah, we have a 60-second clip that we could play. Oh,
a 60-second clip of it. Yeah, we've got it now. I think they're going to play it now, Brian.
So yeah, I'll compare this to the pyramid in Teotihuacan with that ramp coming off the side. The symmetry and geometry of this pyramid, which incidentally so far, in my opinion, is the best evidence of a pyramid found on Mars.
So I sent Robert an email, and within a day or two he got back to me and said, send me the paper, I'll take a look at it, just like that.
That's
I don't even know the guy.
Right.
So we send him the paper, about a week goes by, he resends the paper with his geological analysis already added to the paper, and he puts his name on the paper. Not at the front, but at the end.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, we got Robert Schoch co-authoring a paper with us.
So let's take a closer look at this square. There's not just one 90-degree angle, but apparently there are opposing 90-degree angles.
Correct. It's completely square, which is, again, an oddity.
Wow. That's incredible.
For those who are unfamiliar, Robert Schoch is a world-renowned professor of geology at Boston University, and what my friend George Haas was saying there was that he actually co-authored a research paper which was published last year demonstrating how this square, what they refer to as the square on Mars, which went viral last year, it's unlikely to be of natural origin. It just simply doesn't fit any natural explanation. So here we have a geology professor putting his name on a research paper saying this giant square is most likely of artificial construction. And when you take a look at that, and I'm not kidding, Petrie, we have dozens of other examples of pyramids just as compelling as that one. And if you got to figure, well, maybe the edges aren't quite as pristine, but then again, the surface of Mars is at least millions of years old. So here on Earth, what would an unexcavated pyramid look like? It would really just kind of look like a hill with,
yeah, it would be eroded. I mean, even some of the pyramids that there are eroded, right? They're beginning to look slightly more rounded. So I completely appreciate that.
Right.
Why the nervousness, do you think, to suggest that there were past civilizations? I mean, it's not saying alien, we're just saying a past civilization, and you call it Blue Planet Red because it was a blue planet at one point. And I don't know why you'd be nervous about saying, yeah, it looks like there was another civilization that lived there.
Well, with news like this, Petrie, it runs the risk of disrupting certain things about our society, belief systems, our egos, our fragile human ego. We're the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, true.
And once you take a look into the data as collected by NASA relating to the loss of the planet's atmosphere, the story actually takes a terrifying turn. We don't have enough time to get into it, but the data suggests a global cataclysm.
Right.
And it's worth looking into that, especially when you piece together that the fact is the planet did used to be blue. And what do we know of as blue planet? We think life. We think water. Where there's blue, where there's water, there's life. And so when you take a look at the totality of evidence, we have evidence of biology on Mars currently, as well as fossils, photographic evidence. Photographs are evidence. I'm not saying proof. Proof and evidence are not the same word. So, and then we have artifacts that were photographed by rovers. Dozens of these things, Petrie. This is why I felt so compelled to put together a documentary piecing all of this together for everyone to enjoy in a much more entertaining fashion.
Oh, I so want to. Where do I see this film? Can I find it somewhere?
Yes, luckily enough, it is on Amazon UK.
Right, that's what I'm going to be doing. Will you come back and talk to me again on this?
Oh, I would love to. This has been such a pleasure.
Oh, I would love that. Brian, thank you so much. I am absolutely in. I'm in like Flynn on this whole thing. Brian Dobbs there, documentary filmmaker and Mars disclosure journalist, and it's Blue Planet Red on Amazon. Oh, excellent stuff.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Petrie with you until 1 o'clock, and of course coming up at midnight it is your chance to talk back. And what I want to talk to you about is this piece that I was reading earlier on today, that Britain braces for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers. So how should Europe handle an influx of Iranian asylum seekers? There is a war going on there, and that leads always to a displacement of the population. It's a population of around 93 million people, so even just a small movement of people, you're looking, they're saying 10%, even if just 10% of those people decide that they don't want to stay in that area, then we're looking at plus 9 million people seeking asylum. Where will they go? Well, initially, perhaps they might go to Turkey, because there would be a theory, at least that when things settle down, perhaps they can go back to Iran. But for others, it's Europe. So European countries are bracing themselves for this surge. And already Iran is the third highest nation for asylum claims last year. We already have a huge Iranian population in this country, and many will choose to come to the UK because of that huge population, because there'll be family and friends and you know, an association with this country. So I'm wondering what you think, how you think we should prepare for this. Do you, for example, trust that the new scheme being brought in by the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, her introduction of temporary status, refugee status, do you trust that that will actually work? That is what she's bringing in, saying that that means that successful asylum seekers could be returned to Iran after 30 months if the Home Office deems it to be safe at that point. So do you trust that process? And if we did have an influx of Iranian asylum seekers and they were only here for 30 months, would you trust that? Would you say, well, that's okay, providing that they go back after 30 months? Almost like the Ukrainian scheme, right, where we've said to the Ukrainian refugees, you can be here for a certain amount of time. That's just been lengthened, actually, because the war is still going on. It was originally only for a couple of years. And then, of course, it's gone on longer than that, so they've extended that period. But after that period is over, Ukrainian refugees are required to go home when their country is deemed safe to do so. So it would be a similar scheme, I'm imagining, for Iranian refugees, that they will be told that you can come here, but, you know, once your country is deemed safe, and it's supposed to, you know, 30 months would be the point at which they look into that, that they would be required to go home. Do you trust that? Do you trust that Britain will actually do that? I mean, of course, this scheme would be at the whim of a different government, a different parliament, a different set of people being in power. And do you think, actually, that maybe the US and Israel should pay towards the upkeep of the refugees? After all, it was them who did the creation of the destabilization of the country. But those refugees are unlikely to head to America, because they can't get there, or to Israel, because it's a Jewish state. So they're creating this crisis of millions and millions of Iranians seeking refugee status. Should they be liable to pay towards that? And also, let's not forget that Pakistan and Afghanistan are also fighting. So we could be looking at a greater influx there of people from Afghanistan trying to come to Europe and to the UK as well. So the destabilized wars always create refugees. They always have and they always will. But this is a doozy. So do you think that Britain should deny refugee status? Well, I don't know whether we could under international law. Do you think there should be quotas so that people are shared out fairly? What do you think should happen with this? Because we are likely to see an increase of refugees, both coming officially and unofficially. So give me a call on that. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message, please, to 87222. Well, joining me now to discuss this and, of course, the newspapers for tomorrow is John Boothman, the wonderful John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Always such a delight to see you, John.
How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. What do you make of this? I mean, Britain bracing for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers, whether they come across on the boats or whether they try to come in as official, refugees. If something like the Ukrainian system was set up for them, how do you think that will go down with British people?
Look, I think the point that you're making is just such a huge very well made point about this is yet another consequence of what's happening as a result of Netanyahu and Trump's war in the Middle East. I mean, it's kind of like they didn't really think about it or something. You know, at the same time, you know, and we haven't mentioned this, there's 1 million people displaced in the Lebanon. You know, they're not going from the Lebanon south into Israel. They probably wouldn't, most of them won't be going, you know, along the road to Damascus and into Syria. They're probably, if there's anybody trying to leave the country, you know, heading in the Turkish direction. Yeah. And we've seen before in any of the wars that have been caused, you mentioned, you know, Afghanistan, you've mentioned, well, I've just mentioned Syria. You know, people are coming from those countries. They're heading in a westerly direction through Turkey, through Hungary. They're on into the EU, and some of them eventually coming to here. And there is just complete and utter turmoil in the Middle East now. You know, we've talked, and no doubt we'll talk later on about the economic consequences, never mind the military consequences. And here's yet another one. It's just like some kind of afterthought. And as you say, they ain't going anywhere near America. And even if they could, they wouldn't get in.
No. I mean, they're absolutely no way. But is it right that Trump and Netanyahu can create this wave, this you know, this huge displacement of people, and not have any of the consequences of that? I mean, does the rest of the world have to get tough now with America and Israel and say, look, you have forced these people to leave their homes, at least in Lebanon and Iran. You need to pay towards the rest of us having to look after them. I don't see that that's an unreasonable request or demand.
There's nothing unreasonable about any of that. I mean, it makes eminent sense that that's a direction of travel, the road that you would want to go down. Do you think they're going to listen? No. Do you think Trump is going to heed a single word that anybody says? I mean, we find ourselves in a position in a country, as a country, the European Union finds itself in a position, other allies of NATO find themselves in a position where, you know, they weren't involved in discussions on this war. They weren't involved in planning of this war. They've been...
I'm not sure anybody was involved in planning.
Well, they've frankly been insulted ever since Trump took office for his second term. You know, he was going to invade Greenland. He's had severe disputes with Canada in NATO. He's slagged, you know, the armed forces of all the countries who were involved in Afghanistan as not wanting to be in the front line. And now, for some reason, he's taking umbrage that, you know, all of these countries won't go into the Strait of Hormuz to support, you know, some kind of policing operation or something there. I mean, it sort of beggars belief that somehow or other that's all of our fault. And particularly, now, you know, there's not a lot of sympathy around even in Britain sometimes for Keir Starmer, but, you know, actually he's taken a stance on this stuff. And he's now the object of the ire of Donald Trump as a result. Yeah. Trump just does whatever he likes. Netanyahu does whatever he likes, and the world community seems absolutely helpless to do anything about it.
But it is literally like two bulls in a china shop, and then they depart and say, right, you lot clear up the mess. I mean, that's what it feels like.
If they were only just bulls in a china shop, I mean, they are completely devastating now the world economy. You know, that consequence of immigration. There are millions, it's in the millions now, of displaced people, as well as thousands of people being killed. I haven't mentioned the West Bank yet,
yes,
of Jordan, which is completely under lockdown. Gaza's not making much progress either. And yet everybody's utterly helpless to do anything about it, and getting the blame somehow or other for not helping.
It really is quite extraordinary, though. And if I can turn back to Keir Starmer, because, like you said, he appears to be on the side of the public appear to be on his side about this. It's a popular opinion is that he did the right thing in saying no, and of course now he's using that in PMQs against Kemi Badenoch and Reform by saying you lot would have gone in gung-ho. That's not leadership, that's following. That's just following what Donald Trump says. This is a bit of a win for Keir Starmer, isn't it, across the country?
Oh, I would have thought so.
Yeah,
I would have thought so. I mean, you know, we've all been predicting doom and disaster for him. It might yet come. You know, there's even more stuff tomorrow in the papers about Angela Rayner clearly lining up, running up and down the touchline, you know, waiting for, you know, Starmer to fall over after the May elections, which are only, 50 days away. But yeah, I think, you know, there's a general recognition in the country that Starmer is taking the right stance, you know, but, you know, there will be consequences, perhaps, given the mercurial nature and behaviour of Donald Trump, to even that stance from Starmer. And, you know, depends what way he wakes up tomorrow morning and what he might have to say. I mean, we saw today something quite astonishing in the White House, where once again he had a go at Starmer when he was meeting the Irish Taoiseach, and the Irish Taoiseach basically defended Starmer in a quiet wee mousy voice, right? But, you know, there was Trump having another go.
I know it is quite something. The idea that he said to Keir Starmer, well, you don't have to talk to anybody. Why you're the Prime Minister? I feel like saying, well, it's a democracy, mate. You know, that's what happens in a democracy. You talk to you take advice and you listen to your team, but not according to Donald Trump. Very odd times, really extraordinary. So that's what I'm going to talk about at midnight, is how should Europe and Britain handle the influx of Iranian refugees that are more than likely on their way. Could be up to 9 million, as John rightly pointed out. You've got 1 million people displaced in the Lebanon. You've got the fighting going on in Afghanistan as well, through Pakistan. So there is a mess, and that always displaces people, and they will be heading this way soon. So how do we cope with that? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Quick break, John and I'll be back with the papers in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is John Boothman, who is the political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, let's have a look at the Sun. This couldn't be better news, really. Broke deaf glitter on last legs.
I mean, I was thinking about this when I saw the headline earlier. I can remember Gary Glitter back in the 1970s. He was a sort of huge, almost kind of glam rock comic figure.
He
almost.
really was, yeah.
Larger than life, exaggerated figure. And then, of course, we remember him from, you know, seeing pictures of him in Vietnam, I think it was, where he appeared to end up in prison as a result of, you know, indecent situations with young girls. He appears to be now in prison. He's in this a prison, I think, in Kent, is it?
Devon, he's in Devon.
It's in Devon.
Yeah.
He's in a wheelchair. He's on his last legs, as you say. He's completely deaf. He seems to have money troubles, and there's a bit of, oh, how the mighty has fallen a bit about it. And it looks as if he's not got long to go.
Yeah, I mean, 81 years old fellow inmates believe that Glitter, jailed for sex attacks on young girls, will die behind bars at HMP Channingswood in Devon. So good riddance, that's what I say. Good riddance. The Times newspaper, interesting that I'm going to be talking about migrants at the top of the hour, but stricter migrant rules may be watered down now after Rayner's criticism. Plans to double the time migrants must wait to qualify for permanent settled statement in Britain may be watered down. Is this going to? I'm not sure this is going to be a very popular move.
Well, this is the Labour Party and Keir Starmer caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, there's a huge amount of pressure, obviously, to tighten immigration rules, and a huge amount of political angst for Labour because of Reform, who obviously have benefited round about that whole issue. And on the other hand, Labour's looking over its shoulder at the Greens, particularly in the recent by-election, and the stance that they've taken on immigration. Now what appears to be happening is Angela Rayner, basically the former Deputy Prime Minister, she seems to be on manoeuvres in terms of, you know, being after Starmer's job. She's described Shabana Mahmood's policy to tighten up these rules about migrants as being un-British, you know, thereby really triggering that, you know, I think, you know, a very dangerous situation for Starmer in the Commons, because I suspect her position will be, you know, much more popular with that big number of Labour MPs who were elected at the last election. So I think this is a very, very difficult situation now for Keir Starmer. Hence, it looks as if they may water down those rules. You know,
but shouldn't they be listening to the public? I mean, immigration, they're saying it's a #1 issue on the doorstep. So, I mean, it all seems to be about party and not country.
Yeah, look, again, this is, I think, in this case, about the Prime Minister's survival. And if the Prime Minister, look, he may not survive anyway, depending on how bad the election results are in those, you know, short 50 days' time that we are talking about, those elections in England, Scotland and Wales. Well, he's got to be looking over his shoulder all the time. But you're right, yeah, he's looking to what's happening. Look, so on the other hand, you know, you could argue in some parts of the country that if Labour adopts, you know, a more liberal stance on some of these matters, that they might keep some of the support that they've got. But that's why they're in the difficult place that they're in.
Yeah, well, they're playing politics rather than thinking about the country. That's all. That's the only way I can put it. It's so embarrassing for them, really. This is an interesting story because I thought America didn't want our help. But British military is to help the US form a plan to reopen the strait. British military officers have been dispatched to the US to help plan how to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, defence officials disclosed. And this is after the price of oil has soared again. It's over $100 and I think it's $108 a barrel now. But this is interesting. I mean, we haven't said that we'll commit. We haven't got any ships to commit for a start, but we haven't said we'll do those. So we're just helping with the planning now.
Well, look, I mean, I suppose there is an argument that could say this is us not being involved militarily in terms of any offensive action in the Gulf and in the Straits of Hormuz. So this group of officers have been sent to Tampa in Florida to develop options for keeping the Straits of Hormuz open. You know, we're not sending any warships. Other people are reporting. We are worried that the situation appears is too fluid there, and that, well, the warships may be attacked and you know, be huge problems. We would then be perhaps dragged in deeper. This seems to be some kind of diplomatic type option which might be able to help solve some problems.
Interesting, though, that I would imagine with Trump always saying, well, we don't need your help, they think they're the greatest military in the world, why they would take any advice from British military officers.
Look, it may be, right, that, you know, look, Britain's had a long history in this part of the world. We've got strong ties in this part of the world, you know, in Oman and some of the smaller Gulf states. You know, maybe we have expertise that sort of knows the area, expertise in this kind of field, which would be valuable to the Americans. That's why they're there. Look, it's absolutely essential, and this is where we are now. It's very, very difficult now, given, you know, the amount of bombing that's going on in Cargill Island and all round about the Straits of Hormuz. Now refineries and other places are being hit, infrastructure and not just military targets. It's essential for the state of the world economy, frankly, that something happens there that somehow or other can keep maybe the Straits of Hormuz open. I mean, it's said, anything I've read, that the Iranians have got small boats, they've got batteries on land, you know, they still have mine capabilities all around the Strait of Hormuz that can restrict that waterway and restrict the number of tankers going through it. So anything that, or anybody who's got some kind of expertise that might be able to help somehow or other to get it open, keep it open, is probably welcome. And Trump will say whatever he likes anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Iranians have got hundreds and hundreds of little very fast boats that they can deploy across their land, from their coastline. Into the Strait of Hormuz. Let's have a look at the eye, John. Energy costs climb as Iran strikes hit huge gas plants in the Gulf. And this is what you were saying, is that they're now hitting infrastructure. And this is in revenge for the killing of some pretty top officials in Iran.
Yeah, I think, well, in revenge for that and you know, a whole number of other attacks. You know, certainly in anything I've heard and listened to tonight, this looks like a big escalation that's going on. Yeah. The Israelis, you know, hit one half of a liquefied natural gas field in Iran that seems to be physically linked to another bit of the field in Qatar. And what's happened is this is the biggest LNG field in the whole of the world. And what's happened is that the Iranians have now retaliated against the Qataris. Yeah. And the consequences of that, right, which is a major escalation, are absolutely huge. You know, we're now, you know, according to that article in the Eye, looking at, you know, huge prices, increases in oil prices, markets getting worried about further disruption. And all that means is the price of gas goes up. More generally, the price of oil is already going up, and that just hits everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's amazing about this is that it ain't as if we shouldn't have known that this was going to happen.
Exactly that. I mean, everybody's been warning about this for decades. So it's not like it came as a shock. Well, it seemed to have come as a surprise for Donald Trump, but it not for anybody else, that's for sure. The Daily Express, again, looking at this migrant row, a new row over weaker migrant plan. Keir Starmer's leadership rivals jockeying for position, and we will know more about what Angela Rayner is planning. But a lot of people are saying that she can't really go for any leadership role unless her tax issues have been settled.
Yeah, well, you know, let's see how long that takes. I think, as I say, we are looking to May the 7th and what happens after that. I think the next date we then need to look to is, you know, the run-up to the Labour Party conference in the autumn. And, you know, I have to say, I think I can recall myself and yourself talking about exactly this kind of timetable, I think, last October.
Yeah, yes, we were.
And this is, I think, where all this is now heading. There is still the issue at the end of the day, I think, that maybe keeps Starmer in place, because I still think that's a possibility, is that, you know, you have that difficulty that she faces, Angela Rayner, about the tax thing that needs to be resolved before she could mount a challenge against the Prime Minister. You know, West Streeton, he looks as if his chances are already blown. I'm not sure there's any particular, there might be an appetite in the Labour Party. I don't think there's any particular appetite for another time of having Ed Miliband in charge of the Labour Party in the country.
No,
Andy Burnham is the other person people talk about, but he ain't even an MP. So kind of by default, as the least worst option or something, it might be the case that Starmer gets to stay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it will depend really, I guess, how this war plays out as well. That will define his premiership as well. Let's take a quick break, John, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and good evening. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here, and with me the wonderful John Boosman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. The Guardian going with the Iran story as well, with the oil price rises, as attack on Iran's energy sector prompts reprisal threats. And this is the problem at the moment, isn't it? It is this ratcheting up, or as we all knew would happen, right? This is what happens. Donald Trump's theory of just one hit and you're out. This is what happens in a real war, especially in the Middle East, isn't it?
Yeah, but, you know, we've been hearing them telling us for a fortnight that it's all over, that their navy's destroyed, their military's destroyed, you know, they have no capability really that's worth talking about. The Americans control the seas, they control the airwaves. But do you know what? They are still managing to fire missiles. They're still managing to be a threat, and not just a threat now. As we've talked about to American bases, they are now hitting, you know, the Gulf states. They're hitting Saudi Arabia. They're hitting oil refineries and other places. And this is where, you know, the whole direction of travel in this war is going, and it's just utterly dangerous for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was talking earlier to an expert in the regime, and it's, you know, tactically, the US, of course, is doing really well. It's got the military might, it's got all of those things, but strategically, Iran, I think, is, to put it in Donald Trump's terms, is holding all of the cards, because they've been preparing for this war for 20 years with their underground bunkers, their underground network, their geography as well. You know, there's always, everybody always talks about geography when you talk about Iran, and their mountains and all of the ways that they've been able to develop these weapons. And they've got the Strait of Hormuz, and that was always their plan, is if we're backed into a corner and it is a fight for the survival of the regime, then the Strait of Hormuz has got to go. I mean, that has been number one planning. That everybody, they've even been talking about it in America for the last 40 years, that the Strait of Hormuz mustn't be closed down.
But there's other things that Trump said would happen and encouraged to happen, that the population would rise up and basically the forces of the regime would just, you know, dissipate or disappear or collapse. And none of that's happened. In fact, you know, perhaps it's the case, I don't know, I haven't spoken to anybody in Iran, that maybe, you know, having been subjected to incessant bombing from the Israelis and the Americans, that actually, you know, that strengthens people's resolve.
Absolutely, right? It does. And the killing
to defend their country, even if they think the regime in the country is exceptionally unpopular.
Yeah, I mean, even day one, the killing of those little girls, you know, nearly 200 little girls, that people are starting to rally around the flag, around their country. When they see the devastation that is happening, I mean, that I would think would be bound to happen, right?
Yeah, and again, there's a whole series of other international consequences about this. You know, we know, and we've spoken about as many times about NATO and how it's destabilised, you know, the countries, our own country and the countries that we associate with. But, you know, there is a point of view that suggests that what Trump is doing, what Netanyahu is doing by these actions, is they're driving a whole series of other countries around the world, internationally, in Asia and Africa and in other places, against the interests of America. Yeah. Because Trump appears to be a huge now unreliable ally. He can't even, you know, he can't even make arrangements or really behave in a proper expected fashion with his friends. I mean, there was last Friday, I was again thinking about this earlier, you know, last Friday, as a result of these attacks on the oil fields in the Middle East, you know, on both sides, we've now seen a situation where, you know, he lifts the temporary ban on Russian oil, which is just, you know, what does that mean, you know, for the Ukraine, for example?
Well, this has only got to go on for a few months, and Vladimir Putin has refilled the coffers, and it was looking like Russia would at some point, you know, their economy was so devastated by the war in Ukraine that they were going to lose. But now, and this is why Zelensky was over, because there is a deep concern now that Russia's just stuffing its pockets full of money. It's you know, benefiting massively from this war, and it will build up a war chest again. So the implications there are huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, as I say, Trump's driving people away all around. This is so frustrating because it is so breathtakingly inconsistent. And there is just such a huge worry that, you know, you wake up tomorrow morning and he'll have done something else. And that's not just a worry for every individual, it's just a worry for countries all around the world, and the consequences are just massive.
I predict that by the end of next week he will have taken Karg Island. That's my prediction.
What, sending in troops on the ground, sending in boots on the ground, sending in marine units? Look, it could be. But you know, once you start to get to that stage and put boots in the ground, and we've seen this in so many situations before, you know, how do you get back out? What's the exit strategy at the end of the day? I mean, we've already seen, you know, today the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard in America, talking about, you know, the whole justification for the war was that
Donald Trump thought it was justified.
Yeah, but but also just that, you know, there was an imminent nuclear threat. Yet she appeared to say today that the operation that was carried out against the Iranians last year did obliterate their nuclear capability. Development capability, and they didn't try to restart it yet. You know,
I was watching
the war,
that.
which now started 19 days ago, was carried out on the basis that there was an imminent nuclear threat.
And we had, was it Joe Kent? Was it resigned yesterday as well, saying, I can't in all conscience, you know, leave this unsaid, and said exactly the same, that there was no imminent threat, which delegitimizes the claim that that's why they attacked. But the escalation, the possibilities of escalation here are so huge, and we know that Trump doesn't like to lose. He doesn't want to lose face, so he's going to have to come up with something that proves a win, because regime change doesn't appear that it is going to happen unless we see the IRGC you know, replace the mullahs, which is, you're in a no better situation then, you know, that's not really a regime change either, and so he's going to have to do something that looks like a win. And I, like I said, I think that's Karg Island, or the Toms, Great Tom and Little Tom. I think it's to take those islands and then use them as leverage against the regime.
Look, I think that's an option. You know, the other, and this is also exceptionally frightening. You know, we had him 2 days ago, I think, start to talk about how the next thing in the agenda is Cuba. You know, the country's already in a stranglehold. It can't get any oil. Anything that's coming out of Cuba is, you know, showing that there's now, you know, deep privation in the country.
There's a very humanitarian crisis. Hospitals are failing, people have got no food, they've got no water, all created by a blockade that Trump has put in around Cuba.
He said he would have the honour, he said, of being the American president who brought Cuba back into the fold.
I mean, honestly, where's he got the energy from, all these wars? The ex-Google boss or executive is to be named as a BBC boss.
This has taken quite a long time, hasn't it?
It has,
You know, so...
Since Tim Davey went.
And just, look, it's difficult to tell what it means. You know, for a whole series of different reasons, the whole of the kind of broadcasting landscape's in a bit of turmoil. You know, traditional, you know, viewing, listening has all changed with the advent of social media. They're bringing in somebody who's got that kind of background. It will be interesting to see how the output changes, how, you know, the amount of money that's spent on different bits of the output change.
It definitely needs a shake-up, doesn't it? The BBC needs a better understanding of the world that it sits in now.
Yeah, but I mean, social media is just so all-encompassing and all-enveloping, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of changes anybody can make that can actually stem the tide of, the drift away from kind of traditional listening and viewing.
Yeah. Yeah, but it might be an interesting appointment. You never know. The Daily Star, hottest day of the year. They've already in March got a woman in a bikini. You can't. But that's probably the earliest they've ever done that, isn't it? It must be.
I don't really see many women in bikinis run about Preston Pans where I live, I have to say. I do see, when I go for a walk in the morning, I do see lots of people who are, usually women actually, and women of a certain age who are fully clothed, who go and do the old cold water sea swimming.
What is that about?
Not 400 yards from my house, right? So I don't.
It is. It's
understand
middle-aged
how people
women.
do that. Yeah.
Middle-aged women who go and force themselves into freezing cold water.
Every morning.
A friend of mine was doing that. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Well, look, I mean, it gets kind of cold up here, right? So,
yeah, no, thank
you. There is a more serious thing. I mean, it's been a remarkably certainly in Scotland, it's been a remarkably mild winter, certainly in the central belt, and that's that's quite unusual for us. Usually, I think there's usually a bit of snow around. There's usually much colder than it's been. It's been quite good weather here.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it being a little bit nicer over the next few days. Apparently, it's supposed to be. And the Daily Star says, "Tech that." The Star stops big tech nicking your favourite paper to train AI.
This seemed like quite a serious story for the Daily Star, I thought, this morning. I was this evening. I was kind of looking forward to some completely mad story that you usually get in the Daily Star. But this was all about unauthorized scraping of by big tech and protecting the values of journalism. And I was like, what's happened to the Daily Star today?
Yeah, being sensible. The Daily Mail, just before the break, Iran wages full-scale economic war on the West. I mean, I think we're collateral damage from Iran. I don't know whether we are the intended victims of this economic war. This is to give Donald Trump a bloody nose, because they know how much he goes on about, his economy.
I mean, there's a very scary figure in that article saying that crude oil could hit $200 a barrel. Now, given that crude oil's been around, $70, $80 a barrel. Yeah. If it hits $200 a barrel, think what that might mean for the price of petrol at the pumps.
Well, even $120 a barrel, you're looking at global recession.
So this is just absolutely huge, and absolutely huge for countries like ours, because there ain't really much you can do about it. People will complain about governments and how much in the short term governments might be able to do to subsidise fuel prices, to subsidise gas prices, but we've not got ourselves into a position, whether that be in terms of, stocks of gas, whether that be in terms of the exploitation of oil and gas in this country, we're in any kind of shape to actually do anything much, with countries in a lot of debt, to be able to alleviate the plight of people and industry if prices start to hit in the international markets these kind of levels.
Yeah, I mean, we got rid of all our storage areas, didn't we? Believing that nothing in the world was going to change and we'd be fine, so we didn't need to store it. I mean, that is so short-sighted. I cannot bear it. Quick break, John. We'll be back in just a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. And I'm going to turn to the Metro now, John, because it's on your list to talk about as well. And I broke this news yesterday on my programme about the assisted dying bill in Scotland, which was not passed.
Well, I've been working on this story for the past few days, to be fair, and I was there last night at 10 o'clock where the members of the Scottish Parliament voted this bill down. It was quite a surprise, actually, that the majority was as high as it was. One leading campaigner against assisted dying said to me today, who would have thought in the rest of the United Kingdom that progressive Scotland would ever have done this? I think the expectation around the rest of the British Isles would be that bill would have been passed. I mean, basically, I suppose what happened was that, there were a whole series of members of the Scottish Parliament who were prepared to vote for this in principle, but once they saw the colour of the fine print, once they saw, that there were not enough safeguards in it for their liking, that there was still dangers of coercion around the bill. There was a couple of other things about the protection of conscientious objectors among the medical profession, who would be people who wouldn't want to take part in it. Once they saw those things, that they ended up voting against the bill.
But it's a self-administered drug, wasn't it? I mean, I read through it and I thought that the safeguards were pretty robust, actually.
Well, the pharmacists, the psychiatrists, the medics weren't happy. Their royal colleges, had basically outlined a number of issues with the bill. So we ended up in that place last night. I mean, a couple of people, MSP said to me afterwards, and I have some sympathy with this point of view, that, we've seen what's happening at Westminster. We've seen what's happening in Scotland. They're talking about it in Wales. I just think this is one of these subjects where we really should have an all-UK approach to.
Yeah.
That actually,
because we've seen the Isle of Man. They've
that's right.
it. Yeah, they've approved. They're not part of the.
Yeah, there were some differences between Scotland and England in the bill that was proposed in Scotland, but I just kind of think if we end up going down this road, which we may or may not, that it would be better if something was really drawn up that would be something that would be applicable across the whole country. We could have we could still find ourselves in a situation that if this doesn't happen, it won't happen in Scotland anytime soon, that if it happens in England, where instead of going to Switzerland, people in Scotland might go to England, right, to be part of schemes like this. Depending obviously what happens at Westminster. So that's kind of one kind of lesson that I think.
I just can't bear the nervousness with this, and I think that maybe this is something that needs a nationwide referendum on it, because I know that that a lot of people do support this. The idea of choice.
I understand that point of view. The only thing I would say about a referendum is that I think a referendum is okay for deciding on the principle of something, but what defeated this bill last night, because there was a majority for the principle of it, what defeated this last night was the detail of it. So, at the end of the day, just because people in a referendum might vote in principle to have a scheme, once they see the details of it, there might be issues with the details of it.
Yeah, I take your point.
Look, that's not to denigrate the proposal. I think it's actually worth discussing.
If they're not going to be brave enough to make the decision, then the public should maybe.
Yeah, as I say, I think, somehow or other, I think there must be a better way of doing this.
Yeah.
I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It became, I mean, look, it was a very dignified and hugely emotional debate in the Scottish Parliament last night. And you don't often hear this said, a bit of credit to, the people who took part in it. But, it just, the whole process, even though it's lasted a long time, just didn't seem very satisfactory. I mean, the Scottish Parliament, for example, doesn't have a kind of revising chamber. And
like the Lords, because ours is in Westminster, it's at the Lords at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think it was a surprise the majority.
Yeah, I've been following it. I must admit, I was a bit taken aback when I saw the numbers.
Yep.
I just want to address the story in the front page of the Independent, and this is some real concern about the cases. 5 more cases now of meningitis have been confirmed in Kent. And this is unprecedented, they're saying. This is an explosive outbreak. They're saying that it is under control, but doctors are saying that the overrun NHS is totally unprepared for new, they're calling it COVID-level pandemic. Which those words will send shivers down the spine of anybody in this country, right? But there has been a couple of cases that have turned up in London, one of them a small baby.
Oh, do we not learn any lessons from anything?
No, we don't.
I mean, how long ago, it wasn't so long ago that we had the COVID pandemic, and we are sitting reading reports already the headline, overrun NHS totally unprepared for new COVID level pandemic. I mean, this is just like I don't know.
Day.
It's negligent, right?
Yeah.
Negligence of the highest order. We've got a public inquiry going on. The public inquiry will no doubt produce lots of well-meaning, right and proper suggestions about how we should go forward, and somehow or other we sort of sit in the meantime and just think, well, that was then, this is now, and we don't really do anything about it. I mean, you would have thought that given the number of people who died, sadly, given all of the basically, all of the disruption and our whole way of life was changed as a result of COVID, that for something like this, we might even try and get ready for it. I sort of feel the same way a bit about what's happening in terms of defence spending. We are now talking all the time about the possibilities of war. The government's ramping up its spending by a whole, couple of percent or something.
I mean, we were talking about getting ready for war, frankly, for 4 or 5 years since the Russian invasion on Ukraine.
But
we've done nothing.
We sense that the sense is it kind of isn't very much, is it?
I'm just like you. I don't know who's running this country. Well, I don't know if anybody actually is. So I'm not entirely sure about that. There was one story, going back to the Times, even unfunny jokes can give you the last laugh at work. Do you tell unfunny jokes?
All the time.
You're a dad joker.
But it's better, it's said, to tell unfunny jokes than no jokes at all.
Yeah. Seems
to be the purpose of this story. I kind of struggled reading the story and trying to get the meaning of it, but it's like, yeah, if you've got an unfunny joke to tell, just go and tell it, because somehow or other that's better than remaining silent, is what the story seems to say.
Yeah, it does seem to be saying that, but it just seems to be as well. It's a very dangerous thing to be telling jokes, isn't it, at the moment? I mean, I would definitely not tell some of my jokes to the Gen Xers.
Yeah, it's a bit risky,
or the Gen
isn't it?
Zers.
I mean, it's a bit risky. Yeah, but that's part of the sort of falls into the general category of the world's gone a bit mad, that you're not allowed. Here's what you're not allowed to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd be worried.
I'm an old-fashioned West of Scotland male that kind of probably lets my mouth run off a wee bit too quickly and things. But there's just so many things that you ain't allowed to say these days.
I know. I'd be really nervous
People
about
get
telling you that.
horrified.
Yeah.
Right? You can't say that.
I know, but apparently an unfunny joke. I mean, my dad was the master at unfunny dad jokes, really bad at them. I mean, they were terrible, really bad. And I often thought, no, I'd rather you didn't tell any jokes at all, but I was wrong. Apparently, it's better to tell a bad one than not.
I bet you would just be telling those jokes for badness and a laugh, right?
Yeah.
To annoy people.
Yeah, probably. John, thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure to see you. So that's John Boosman, the political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. This is Talk Back. This is your chance to do exactly that. And what we're talking about this morning is that Britain is now bracing for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers. This is potentially the biggest movement of displaced people that we will have seen. You're talking, there's an expectation of 9 million. And that would just be about 10% of the country, considering that it is currently being bombarded. The EU's asylum agency has warned that the conflict there could induce a migration influx of unprecedented magnitude that could swamp the EU's borders. And of course, we know what that means for us. With a population of approximately 90 million, even partial destabilisation could generate refugee movements of unprecedented magnitude. Displacement of just 10% of Iran's population would rival the largest refugee flows of recent decades. So we're looking at 9 million. And Lebanon 1 million people displaced. You've got Afghanistan and Pakistan as well, untold hundreds of thousands, potentially millions from there as well. Where will they head to? Well, they all head to Turkey, but they are absolutely determined and bound to end up in Europe and in Britain. So, Home Office has instructed caseworkers to continue processing asylum applications by Iranians as normal, despite the US-Israeli strikes and counterattacks by the Iranian regime. Officials have told them there will be no pause in asylum decisions or interviews, as there is no regime change at present. So an enormous number of those people, Iranians who apply for asylum, are granted it. It's in the high 90s that they are granted because of what's going on in Iran and because there has been no regime change. So those applications do tend to go through. There's also a concern, of course, that many people from other areas in the Middle East will claim to be Iranian because they know that they will be, there's a green light, it's just a tick. They will get in because of the regime change and now the lack of regime change, and now the war that is going on in Iran. So we are looking at a wave of people of unprecedented numbers, not seen in decades, coming through to Europe and, of course, to the UK. I'm just wondering how you think we should handle that, and whether you trust, because of course the system is about to change under Shabana Mahmood. She has said that any refugee status will now be temporary, which means that after 30 months, if Iran is deemed to be safe, then people will be sent back. But do you trust that? Do you trust the principle of saying, well, we'll let loads of people in, but I promise you they will go back? Almost like the Ukrainian deal, right? Which has just had to be extended because the war in Ukraine has gone on much longer than anybody anticipated that it would. So do you trust the system in this country that it would actually deport people, and it could actually deport people after about 30 months? And how do you think that we should handle this? Should there be quotas? Should there be, should we agree to take a certain number? This is very different to what happened in Syria, because actually with the fall of Bashar al-Assad, that was a regime change. So there were people were not allowed to come from Syria to claim asylum, not officially anyway, through official channels. So I'm just wondering what you think we should do about this, and whether you think that actually the US and Israel are responsible for what will be a massive displacement of people from Iran, and therefore they should pay for it. That they should fund the countries that have to take these people in. It is, after all, Israel and America's war. But of course, the refugees and asylum seekers are not going to apply for asylum in Israel because they're Muslims, and they're not going to go to America, and they wouldn't be allowed in anyway. So America and Israel have caused this. Should they pay for it in terms of reparations to us if we have to take in thousands or even millions of Iranians? What do you think? What do you think should be done in this situation? This is one of those consequences of war that we will end up paying the price for. So give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Richard said there's absolutely no reason why they should come here. Dubai is close by. Well, they don't allow immigration in Dubai unless it's rich white people going to buy houses there. We need to leave the ECHR and close our borders, and not our problem, unfortunately. Except, Richard, that we do have a duty to take in people from as asylum seekers. And maybe you think that we need to scrap all of that as well. And this one from Fern in Glasgow says, once again, we find that refugees want to flee their country and go everywhere except their safe neighbouring countries. Yeah, let's import more sleeper cells. Well, the neighbouring countries aren't safe either. Ironically, Syria is the safest country in the Middle East at the moment. So I'm just wondering what you think about that. Give me a call on that. Sarah is in Liverpool. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Petrie.
So this is one of those consequences of war, right? That we will see a huge displacement. They're talking about waves of migrants swamping EU's borders and, of course, making their way to the UK as well.
Truthfully, Petrie, I think we should welcome them. And I mean this, let's be perfectly honest, Britain is made up, this is a country that's been made up of immigrants from going back eons. Now, before everyone starts screaming and hitting their anti-social media feeds, let's get one thing straight. Let's see what's going on first.
Right.
But that's the first thing. The other thing is, it'd be hypocritical of us not to accept refugees from Iran, because there is a war going on. B, the rest of the Middle East is about as safe as hell on a hot day. Let's be honest, with Iran lobbing bombs here, there, and everywhere. So they have to go to safe places. Eastern Europe at the moment is a little bit on the hot side, especially what's going on in Ukraine, and no one knows exactly what's going to happen there with Putin. And the other thing is, we have to. The Western Europe will take in their fair share too. And as I say, it's hypocritical of us not to take them in, because we took in Ukrainian refugees when Russia invaded Ukraine. And before everyone goes, oh, but that's different, it's no different whatsoever. These are people trying to get away from tyranny and war. It's not. If we refuse them, then we should be hanging our heads in shame. And let's get one thing straight. What everybody seems to have forgotten in all of this. Over the last 15, 20 years, as we all know, there's been plenty of wars and warettes and whatever through Africa, through the Middle East, and anywhere else you care to mention. And we've had waves and waves of refugees. And who is at the root of all of this? Now, we'll leave Afghanistan and Iraq for a moment, but the rest of it, who was at the back of it, causing all the mayhem that everybody's forgotten? Russia and her allies. So you've got the Wagner Group getting involved with the militias. The militias, although they appear to be totally independent and nothing at all to do with Russia, the old KGB saying, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And if they can cause as much mayhem in the likes of Africa,
which
Asia,
they have
Middle
been
East,
doing, like you said, the Wagner Group have been out there, yep.
And people are getting out the way. Now, if someone decided to cause a civil war in Britain, what would we do? Stay put? No, people would be packing their kit, taking the nearest and dearest and their pets, and heading for the nearest border to get out. Be it Ireland, France, or wherever. Now,
but I mean, these wars that are going on in the Middle East, and there's always contagion issues as well. There's always worries now with Qatar and other countries who will eventually not just sit in a defensive position. That's the concern, is that a lot of these countries that are being attacked by Iran, who've decided to remain in a defensive position, may well switch to an offensive position. But is there not a limit to how many people this country can and should take in? I mean, a lot of people would argue that with Ukrainians coming over, their culture is very similar, their religion is similar. We can't have too many of one particular type of different culture to ours in this country. There's not an endless, a supply of space or money for them.
I know people have said that. I seem to remember the same arguments being said, and please don't quote Godwin's law at me, when German Jews were trying to get out of Germany when Hitler came to power. And the same arguments came across. Oh, we can't have them. They're different. Oh, they're not like us. They're not this. They're not that. Oh, the arguments were endless. The only ones who were taken in, if you were lucky, if you paid 50 quid, which was a hell of a lot of money back in the 1930s, to come over and so you could get a job or whatever. That was your surety. Now, only people who were filthy rich could afford that. The only ones that were taken in, not by the state, but on ad hoc private schemes, were the kinder transport, which people actually got up themselves and got the kids out. They were the only ones who they let in. And we did something. We saved so many thousand kids and people who could get over. And quite a few of those refugees we should be getting down on our knees and thanking God for. And one of them, apart from Einstein, who eventually went to the States, the other was John Krebs. And there's a lot of people who have mitochondrial problems who are grateful that he was saved, because he was the one who discovered the Krebs cycle. And when that goes wrong in your mitochondria, anything can go wrong in the body. So it's thanks to him we know about it. And this is what really gets my goat when people say, oh, we can't take in any more refugees, we can't this, we can't that. Every time there's been a wave of human movement, be it war or what, there's always these same tropes come up. We've heard it time and time again. We had the race riots in Liverpool in about 1911, 1912. We heard it again when Mosley was coming up. These immigrants, or in this case they were saying about Jews, but any immigrants, how dare they come here? They're not the same as us. Then we had, the Rivers of Blood speech from Enoch Powell.
Yep.
And then we've got Farage. Now, let's bear a few things in mind. Those politicians who keep banging on about immigration, apart from the fact they just love the clickbait on their social media feeds, the other thing is, we have to bear in mind a few things. Who is busy stirring up hatred, not just by all this refugee movement and getting people against each other, also with political influence through their various little donations via oligarchs, many about 15 years ago, and so on. Who else but the politicians who they see it as their little bit of joy, should we say, to cause all this mayhem, to get people to hate each other, instead of going, we've got, people are refugees, let's try and help them. They're going, these people aren't like us. They're here to upset the apple cart. They're going to make. They don't have.
But is there a limit, though, Sarah? Is there a limit? Should there, there's this time limit now that Shabana Mahmood wants to bring in, which may well be watered down from what the papers are saying, to say, look, you don't get permanent refugee status. The Ukrainians don't have permanent refugee status. They will be required to return to Ukraine as soon as Ukraine is deemed to be safe. Now, the question is whether the question is whether Iran will ever be declared to be safe, because if the IRGC take over, that won't make it any safer. If the mullahs are still there, then that won't make it any safer. So, we could be looking at millions and millions of Iranian refugees. Surely there's a limit, isn't there? Or are you saying there isn't a limit?
Well, what I'm saying is quite simple. Those refugees, they will settle in countries in Western Europe. Eastern Europe, I think they're not going to be settling there. But Western Europe, they'll be thinking, well, we've got relatives in, say, France, Germany, wherever, here. I mean, we have got quite. I mean, I know in Liverpool we have quite a Iranian community, and they've been here for years, and they've got relatives who are still over there. So if they decide to come over and be with their relatives, and I haven't got a beef with that. I mean, I can remember being told by my grandparents when they came over from Ireland, and this is about the time of the uprising, when they got over to England, all they got was hatred. They were treated like second-class citizens. In fact, no, that is mild. They were treated as if they were subhuman, and this is a terrible trait that the Brits have. And to me, I'm a first, second generation away from Ireland, I find that to be absolutely disgusting, because I think this is not how we should be. We should, the basic human decency is to look after the most vulnerable, welcome the stranger, clothe the naked, and put a roof over people's heads. Now, politicians have done their level best over their time to cause so much divide and rule, and the majority of people have fell for it. It's like clickbait on anti-social media.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you, but there are issues with taking in everybody who wants to come here, and the Migration Observatory has said that Britain was one of the main countries for Iranian asylum seekers, so they do want to come here. And if we're looking at a displacement of even just 10%, we're looking at 9.3 million people. We are broke. I mean, we're taxed to God knows where, and that's only going to get worse. We've got the NHS is on its knees, everything is crumbling, and you know, a further couple of million people. Can we afford that?
Let's be perfectly honest here, Petrie. As everybody knows, when it comes to statistics, there's lies, half-truths and statistics, and come to think of it, politicians as well. And not all of those people will come to Britain. Let's get that straight. We're going to have millions landing at the doorstep. I mean, I've heard this so often. And the seeds of all of this, the way Britain is, being broke, being at each other's throats, having our public services totally and utterly cut, not just to the bone, right through to the marrow. That is all down to our previous administration, the Tories, in its various forms and various prime ministers, starting from Cameron and ending with Liz Truss. Rishi, God help him, got landed a right poison chalice. He didn't have time to try and turn things around. But nevertheless, he was part of the regime. And think about what they did. Every single thing they did, they cut the NHS. And a good example, but they cut the NHS right back to the bone, all the funding. That's why people can't get any operations, can't get treatment, can't get anything. It's also the reason why one of the first things they did cut was palliative care, which is an absolute and utter no-no. And that funding has not yet been put back. Thank you very much, Keir Starmer, if you're listening. So get it back. The other thing is as well, all of the things to do with education and training for young people and anybody who was on hard times on the dole, they got just taken away from them. So any form of training, any form of education, etc., that all got taken off them. That's wrong. Another reason why we've got all this fomenting the divide and rule and hatred and everyone at each other's throats. The other thing is as well, again, this is down to a previous Tory, Maggie Thatcher. The council housing schemes, they all went to the wall. We haven't had I think the last time a council house was built where I live was about 25 years ago. That's wrong, because the Labour was starting to was rebuilt, saying, right, we've got to have more council houses, get them built under Blair and Brown. But when the Tories got in, that got knocked on the head. Again, more divide and rule. The haves against the have-nots. People being at each other's throats, which just suits politicians down the ground, as you well know, Petrie. I do, yeah. And let's bear one other thing in mind as well, both with the Tories, again, the clickbait brigade, and also with Farage's many incarnations of what he wants to call his party, everything from UKIP to Brexit to reform to whatever they want to call it next week. Let's bear one thing in mind. Anybody who's read up on British politics over the last 15, 20, well, especially the last 15 years especially, will know that the oligarchs pump money into both the Tories and into Nigel Farage's various incarnations. You can read about it, everything from this month's March's edition of Byline Times through to Shadow State by Luke Harding and his other books about how Russia's influence on politics, not just in Britain, but in the rest of and in America as well, how they behave now. When Russia, via its oligarchs, gives money to a political party, usually right wing, usually populist, you have got to be you've got to basically dance to their tune. Things like, oh, Russia's not that bad, they're okay, and basically blinding people. I mean, not blinding them, but blindsiding them to what's actually going on. I mean, let's put it this way. When they had the big investigation into Russian interference in British elections and in British politics, you notice that Boris sort of kept that very quiet and sort of released it after he got elected. It was after he got elected. It was just before COVID. And it was when COVID sort of came up on the rails, it all got forgotten. Also, the fact that there was the Securities Committee saying about the fact that Russian influence in the city, it was called the London Laundromat. I mean, this stuff is, all of this stuff, all of this hatred, all of this division, all the fact that all the wars and whatever that's going on, why we've got a big movement of refugees, is all down to Russian influence and their allies. And people just don't want to admit it. And people say, oh, millions of refugees are going to come from Iran. That we don't know that. That's all speculation. That's all blarney, to be polite. What people are coming out with, they're just throwing figures out to cause scaremongering and hatred. I know quite a lot of Iranian refugees, people who, from when the CIA-backed coup started. It's all their fault to start with. They were the ones who kept the Shah in America and brought the Ayatollah Khomeini over to Iran. And it was like you went from a country being basically brought into the 20th century to being put back into like the 9th century.
Oh yeah, it's all American influence and interference. Yeah, I mean, they've never been very good at regime change. None of us have. We've always failed at all of it. Interesting to talk to you, Sarah. It always is. So Sarah thinks, yeah, we should just take them in. That's it. We've got the money, we've got the space, we've got the time, we've got the heart for it. If there are Iranian asylum seekers, and Britain is bracing for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers, which wouldn't be surprising, right? It really wouldn't be surprising given what's going on. So what do we do about it? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back with Petrie. And look, before we get back to the phone-in, I've got, this is very unusual for me, but I do have some homework for you, right? So this is homework that you have to have done before next week. I'm going to have to do it as well, just so you know. I'm going to have to do it as well. So I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself, but this is very serious. It is my request that you do this homework. I want you, if you can, to watch the manosphere. It's the new Louis Theroux documentary. It is getting massive traction absolutely everywhere, looking at the manosphere, because I think we can have a really good conversation about that. So this is really, I don't think I've ever done this before in my 930 years as a phone-in presenter. I've never set homework, but I am setting you with homework. I would like you, if you can, to watch the manosphere. If you don't have Netflix, which is possible, I understand that, then if you can read up about what the manosphere is, that would be really helpful as well. And I haven't watched this documentary yet, because I was talking to my son, and he said, "Mama, you'll be throwing things at the television. It'll drive you nuts. It'll make you really cross." And I just thought, I don't want to be. I already throw things at the television, so I'm going to have to sit down and watch this as well. So, like I said, I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. So the Louis Theroux, the manosphere, it is highly controversial, apparently, and very, very interesting and very important if you are a man, if you are a woman, if you are a woman or a man with a son, and if you are a man or a woman with a daughter. In other words, it's important to all of us to understand what the manosphere is, what causes the manosphere, and how we can change this toxicity into something where we can live together. So I really want to talk to you about it. It absolutely fascinates me. So there you go. That is your homework. Louis Theroux's The Manosphere. Like I said, if you don't have Netflix, then just look it up, read about it, so we can have a decent conversation next week. There you go. Let's see how this goes. See if you do as you're told. You'll get lines if you don't, and detention. So make sure you do that homework. Quick break. I'll be back in a moment to speak to Carol in Manchester.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. It is Petrie here with you, and we are discussing this morning the fact that Britain and Europe are bracing themselves for a huge influx, an unprecedented influx of Iranian asylum seekers, given the situation in Iran at the moment. There is a suggestion that it could be upwards of 9 million people seeking refuge away from Iran. And on top of that, of course, you've got Afghanistan and Pakistan fighting, and you've got Israel displacing 1 million people in Lebanon. So there's a lot. I mean, war, this is what war does. This is just what it does. And that's why when people talk about our foreign aid and things like that, that it's like, you know, that's why we spend that money in foreign aid, to hopefully prevent things like this from happening and then having to deal with the refugee crisis that follows. This had nothing to do with us, though. This one, we had nothing to do with this time. Israel and the United States will be to blame for the displacement of all of these people. Do you think they should pay for it? Do you think that at the very least we could make application to say, well, look, you created this, you know, they're not going to come to America, you're too far away, and you wouldn't let them in because they'd be flying in, you know, unless they went to Mexico and came across the border there, which is a possibility. But you know, with ICE there at the moment, I don't know. I mean, it's not likely, is it? They're not going to be able to fly all that way. So they would more than likely head to Turkey, and then from Turkey through down into Western Europe. And we have an enormous number of Iranian refugees as it is. And officials are being told at the moment there's no pause in giving asylum to Iranian refugees because the regime changed. There has been no regime change. So most of these applications are met positively from Iran. Most of them are. They just, you know, almost 100% are given asylum because of the situation in Iran, which is now worse than it was. So that's what we're talking about this morning. Do you think that the US and Israel should pay towards that displacement of people? How should Europe handle this? I mean, the language that is being used is saying that the unprecedented magnitude of asylum seekers that could swamp the EU's borders. Iran is flagged as a significant potential crisis that could reverse processes in reducing migration numbers over the past year. They're looking, like I said, upwards from 9 million people, and in the coming months we'll start to see the numbers increase for those coming over to the UK. So, what do you think we should do about it, if we should? Oh, Gary, good boy. Well done. It's inside the manosphere. Thank you, Gary, for correcting me on that. Inside the manosphere, added to the watch list, challenge accepted. Well done. You don't get detention. And Kaz says, saw Manosphere yesterday. I mean, I love an alpha male, but that programme was off the scale. The entitlement is strong in them. So, Kaz, you'll be ready to comment when we do the phone-in on it then. I can't wait. I'm really excited about this, doing this. So, look, I'm not being funny about it. This is really, really societally important. So it is vital that this is something that we address. And I know you guys, you're really good at coming up with answers and suggestions and comments. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it. So inside the manosphere, Louis Theroux. Oh, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Carol is on the line now to talk about this asylum crisis that is heading our way. What do you make of it, Carol? Good morning to you, by the way.
Good morning to you. And I'll definitely be doing my own work.
Good girl.
I'm excited. I'm intrigued with it anyway.
Yeah,
I'll go for it. And thank you for saying it, because I'm coming down off, is it Sarah? With
in Liverpool.
All I can say, no disrespect, and I never do that or whatever. She's more than welcome to have people to come in her home, right, and bring them in. That's all I say. I hate that area where we can bring everybody in. I'm so annoyed, right, at the end of the day, right, regarding with governments, all governments and whatever. Unfortunate, we have them for 5 years. We have no say. We just vote them in for whatever they're preaching or whatever it be or whatever. And as you can tell, I'm literally, probably like a lot of people, not happy with a lot of our governments that are going on at the moment. It's shocking. And the other thing is regarding the rest of Europe, the rest of the world or whatever, all these leaders, right, that are dealing with whatever they don't have to deal with it like it is in my house. I'm speaking about my son tonight regarding where he needs to go and get his job. He's maybe moving out of Manchester if he gets the job. He's worried about his bills. My kids are, you know, like, they've got degrees, professional people or whatever, you know, like, and they're talking about people, right, or bringing in other people, I don't care where they come from or what it is, until we can look after our own in this country, our young generation. And it don't matter if you're on the left or the right or whatever, right? Until you can start looking after your own people in your own country, why are we not looking after them? Because there's no money left. These young people cannot afford rent, never mind a house. They can't afford anything. They're staying with the mothers and the fathers. They're coming back to the grandmothers, the grandfathers. Children, right, who are married, right, who've got children, are coming back to families. Who's speaking about that? Who's talking? And all we're doing year after year after year is talking about bringing people from countries that we're not in control of, whatever they do to, or whatever the wars are or whatever. People are not interested. People that I'm living round here are not interested, because you know why? We've got no control of it. We have no control. And then we've got a government, right, at the end of the day, not only a government, several governments that are only giving a damn about their votes, where they're getting them from. They don't give a damn about this country. And I honestly, truthfully, I'm fuming of what I've seen today. And it's not from yourself, you know, like, you're amazing, absolutely amazing. But it really annoys me that our people, like Sarah, no disrespect to you, lady, I'm not disrespecting, I've heard a lot of, you know, like what you said today, and I understand some of the stuff, but you're totally wrong by having a go, right, with people that are here. These people here cannot, in this country, right, it doesn't matter what religion, what colour you are, or whatever, the people that are living in this country cannot afford to pay for anything else that's going on in the world out there.
Yeah, and I look, I'm with you. You know, I've got a son, and I know about the rental stuff, and you know, I do expect at some point in the future that he and his girlfriend will probably move in with me at some point. Yeah. Right, I'm expecting that to happen. It doesn't fill me with great joy,
no.
but you know, I love them, so it's fine. But I agree, though, with what Sarah was saying on the basis of this. The principal basis of this is that there is more money around. There could be more money around if the system was fairer, right? And there could be, everybody could have a better life. I mean, I'm not exactly Zach Walensky level of you know, of where he wants to go with taxation, but I do believe that the wealth gap is insane. That it is ridiculous. I think that it is absolutely diabolical that we have so many billionaires and they avoid and dodge tax.
The thing is,
you know, you've got Richard Tice who avoided a £600,000 tax bill.
Yeah, but I get that.
Legally, but he still avoided it.
I get that. I understand that. But when it comes to business people are like that. They're ruthless. That's why they've got money. They're ruthless. But the thing is, don't get me wrong, I'm not.
They're the ones leeching all that. They're the ones that are taking all the. What Sarah was basically saying is they're the ones that are holding all the money.
These kind of people, you've got Dubai, right? They're getting richer and richer and richer. These people can move wherever they want, and if you tax them for whatever it be or whatever,
but they're holding us to ransom, then, aren't they? It's blackmail.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but the thing is at the end of the day, it's like us, just us, Forget the rich people. Forget just the working people. We're paying more money.
Yeah, we are.
We're paying more tax. We're paying more.
But that's because we're letting the very, very, very wealthy off.
I know people, working people, that are moving out of this country. Forget the millionaires. They can do whatever they want. I've got 2 friends of mine that are moving and going to Dubai, and with their children. They're going, because the way that our country is, the way that it's going is like they're not here. They don't want to be here anymore because they don't know what kind of country that we're living in. And I'm not for the right. I'm not what you call it. I'm in the middle.
Don't you see the slight hypocrisy in that? It's like you've got people living in Saudi Arabia who say, well, I left Britain because there's no freedom of speech, and I've left Britain because of Sharia law, and I'm worried about that. And then they're going straight into to be immigrants in another country.
Well, funny enough, it ain't. It's because, them 2 people, like, it's what you call it, they're Muslim. They're not what you call it. They're not Dingo, they're Muslim. They're moving, so that's what I'm saying, is that we're all getting wrong cross thingies with it. It's automatically thinking that they're non-Muslim people. They're not. They're Muslim people.
Yeah, but there's a majority of people who go to live in Dubai and
they're moving, they're going. And the thing is that that's what I'm saying. We have to be careful how we use things, how we what you call it. And what we need to do, we need to concentrate on this country first. What we need to do is concentrate on this country. And of course, we want people from all over. But the thing is, at the moment, wherever the hell it's all come from, if it be the 14 years and 2 years with Labour, is not doing very well at all. It's absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. And I watched Prime Minister's, this afternoon, and it's like, our Prime Minister is all over the place. It's just
it wasn't a good performance. I have to agree with you on today. It wasn't a good performance today, Carol. Thank you very much indeed. I just get frustrated with people who complain about immigration and then move to another country because of immigration, making themselves immigrants. Oh, expats, sorry, but they're still immigrants in another country. And I've seen commentators who live in Saudi Arabia going, oh, the Sharia law in London. And I think you live in blooming Saudi Arabia. What are you talking about? You've chosen to go there where there is Sharia law. I just find the hypocrisy of it is just, I can't cope. Can't cope with it. Message here saying, could you let us know which night the topic of Inside the Manosphere will be discussed, please? Also, well said to Carol, she's correct. Look after our own first. Sorry, that was me kicking the bucket. You do not feed everybody else's children before your own. Now, the issue with Inside the Manosphere is that I have to do it on a night where there isn't a huge breaking news story. So that's why I'm being a bit saying it's next week. So it'll either be Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, but I suspect it'll probably be Tuesday, okay? Just to get to start the week and catch up with the news and do the main news stories. And then we can do Inside the Manosphere. I think probably Tuesday. I've just arbitrarily decided that, so I think probably Tuesday, but I'll keep you up to date with that. It's just because of the way the news is moving at the moment. We may have to push it, but I'm planning for it to be on Tuesday. So, quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. And we are discussing at the moment Britain and the EU bracing for a surge in Iranian asylum seekers, which is not surprising, but it's one of those consequences of war. They're saying that it could be unprecedented in magnitude, and could swamp the EU's borders. And with an approximate population of 90 million, even partial destabilisation could generate refugee movements of unprecedented magnitude. That's what they said, looking at around 9 million people. So I'm asking you what we should do about that as a country. Been really good so far, really interesting. Kevin is in Basingstoke. Hi, Kevin.
Morning.
Morning.
Can I say something really quick about the rich people leaving, and then I'll talk about the migrants?
Yeah, go on.
I mean, billionaires that own the media have been saying that rich people are going to leave if you tax them too much for 50 years.
I know.
And, you know, in the 80s, there was about 27 billionaires in this country. Now there's 160 billionaires. And when you're that wealthy, the beauty of being that wealthy is you can do exactly what you want. You can have your house in the best part of London. You can buy a house in the country. You can have horses. If you've got everything you want, you've got all your family and friends around you, this is where your life is, you're not going to up sticks and go to some tax haven, because most of them are pretty small and quite boring. I mean,
I totally agree with you, Kevin. This argument has been perpetrated through the media and now through social media to keep people quiet, to make people scared, to tax them. And we're not talking about taxing their income. We're not talking about any of that. It's just taxing wealth over, you know, a disproportionate number. I mean, that's it. And I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, rich people, they love London. They love all the nightlife and you know, the shops, and you know, there's a lot of rich people there. They all sort of hang out together. They love it. They're not going to go and live in some boring town where it's boiling hot all year round.
I agree. I'm with you on that. And we know now that wealth doesn't trickle down. People always go, "Oh, they're the wealth makers," but it doesn't trickle down. It doesn't.
No, absolutely
it doesn't.
not.
It's been completely, you know, knocked back that theory. So, okay. So, talk to me about the migration situation.
Well, the thing is, I think you said will America and
Israel.
Sorry?
Israel.
Yeah,
America and Israel pay. Yeah.
They're not going to pay for it. I mean, America didn't pay for all the Afghan refugees that come here, did they?
No, but they did take in 190,000 themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
they did offer refugee status. I think they're trying to. I think Donald Trump's trying to take that off them now. I was reading. So
Donald Trump, he's just scrapped affordable health care and food stamps for Americans.
I know.
So, you know, he doesn't even care about his own people. He's scrapped overseas aid, which feeds starving children and, you know, stopping them getting...
And the food that was intended to go to them had to be burnt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know, it's disgusting.
Well, people keep sort of saying, oh, you know, all these asylum seekers come to this country. They actually don't all come to this country. I think we take about, with number 5, so there's 4 other countries that take more than us. But when you look, but you don't really look at it like that. You look at it per capita. And per capita, we're 17th in Europe. And places like Kosovo and Moldova, they're 2 of the poorest countries in Europe, and they take a lot of asylum seekers. So, you know, they don't all come here. And I don't know why people say they're scared of them. I had somebody, I was watching talkTV earlier on, and a woman was saying, they were protesting in Kent and saying, oh, you know, we're unsafe. But aside, there's no evidence whatsoever that asylum seekers are commit more violent crime than anybody else in this country. And she's saying, "Oh, we don't know who they are," but we don't know who anybody is when they move next door to you. You don't know who holidaymakers are. So I think they're being sort of scared for no reason.
Well, I mean, I suppose you see in the media, don't you, the cases of foreigners who do commit crimes, but they make the papers because of that, rather than if it was just just a British bloke that had done it, it probably wouldn't get as much press attention. So that's the situation, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. If it because when I listen to the news and they talk about a rape or a stabbing, I always think, God, I hope it's not an asylum seeker or somebody that's black, because I know the media would be all over it. And because there are, I mean, I look for, I don't just listen to mainstream media. There are lots of, you can go online and sort of see that there's lots of cases where white people have done things, rapes and murders.
The rape gangs as well. There's loads of them. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it is disproportionate, but it's disproportionate because it makes headlines, right? It's like benefit cheats. Everybody thinks everybody's a benefit cheat, and it's just because those that are benefit cheats, they're interesting. People want to read about it. People want to, discuss it. But there is no doubt we will get a lot of people who want to come and live here because of what's going on.
Well, yeah, but the thing, what annoyed me is the Conservatives and Reform UK. They both said, "Oh, we should join in with America bombing Iran."
Yeah.
But Nigel Farage, I don't know about the Conservatives, but Nigel Farage and Richard Tice have both said that we shouldn't accept any refugees. And I'm thinking, you're okay to bomb them, but you don't want them coming here.
Yeah, you don't want the responsibility of the mess that you've created. But that is very, very typical, I'm afraid. That is it. Kevin, great to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Snakebite says there's no easy solution for the refugee situation, but it certainly doesn't involve sticking them all in a hotel and barring them from contributing to society in their new country. So let them gain legal employment. And he said, oh yeah, challenge accepted on the Louis Theroux documentary. Excellent. I'm loving this. So don't forget your homework. I will be checking. So your homework is to watch Inside the Manosphere if you can, and ready for a talk back for next week. So make sure if you haven't got Netflix and you can't do that, then just read up about what the manosphere is. Otherwise, you'll find out what the manosphere is about when you listen to the program, and you can join in, because it's everyday stuff now. But I do want you to try and watch it. So I'm very pleased and very well done, Snakebite. You'll get a little gold star to stick on your chart to show your mum. All right, so well done with that. Andy says, much as I feel sorry for the refugees, we must make sure that people like the IRGC don't come with them and cause us harm. I think that's a very good point, Andy, and that is the problem, isn't it, that we don't really know who is coming